Sahana bhavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Saha viryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We will chant chapter 4 verses 31 to 35. Yajnashishtamrita bhujaha yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokosya yajnasya utonyah kuru sattama evam bahuvidha yajnaha vitata brahmano mukhe कर्मजान् विद्धितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे श्रेयान् द्रव्यमयाद्यज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेशन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि.
So before we continue with the verses, there's a question. Question from Krish. In Yajna 9, what is meant by asceticism? Is it the same as sannyas? Yes, it can be called as equated to sannyas. So asceticism, usually in spiritual practices, relates to the initial stage. You compel yourself to skip eating on a Friday night. You can call it asceticism. You're compelling. It's not that you have lost the desire for tasty food. You have risen above that. So you are consciously with attempt withdrawing. So these initial practices could be called as asceticism, which are required. Now, why are you practicing all this? Because as you gain knowledge, you begin to understand the hold mind has upon you. Previously, none of us knew what is mind, how mind rules our life. We did not know. So what does knowledge do? It doesn't make us intelligent. Knowledge is like a flashlight. If you claim that you have more knowledge, that means there is more light in your own life. So when there is more light in your life, the first thing you understand is many actions and choices you make are led by mind. So a very gentle way of gaining governance over the mind is calculated withdrawal. This is asceticism. Sannyas in the Bhagavad Gita is a state where you have risen above certain desires because your establishment in the higher is so complete. So we don't meet such people in dozens. are very rare, such advanced seekers. They are like spotting a tiger in the wild. Every person who goes to forest can see a rabbit, can see birds, but to spot a tiger or a leopard in the wild is not easy. The same way, spotting a person who is freed from desires is not so easy. So asceticism, on a general basis, you can translate it as sannyas. Nothing wrong with it. Next. So what is meant by rigid vow? Is it forced self-denial? Then it seems not to be self-control. Krish, if you and I know self-control is not self-denial, you think Krishna is more stupid than us? It is from the wisdom of Krishna that you and I know the difference between self-control and self-denial. It is from these books that we have learned the difference. How can the book promote self-denial? Even if the book promotes denial, you will follow what your mind says, not what the book says. So I explained what is asceticism. Looking at someone practicing certain withdrawal, you do it because of some fancy, that becomes denial. This is how my father did, this is how my mother did, this is how my grandfather and grandmother lived, this is how everyone in my family lives. So I will not budge, I will not change. This is self-denial. They can live their way, whatever way they live, but this knowledge has shown me a better clarity. So I have a choice, a well-informed choice now to choose how I want to live. So these choices will not take me towards higher, towards evolution. So I need to avoid. This is self-control. You know the difference. Spirituality and denial don't go together. Denial means suppression. Spirituality means freedom. If you have to replace this word spirituality with one word, it is freedom. Not freedom the way Americans understand. The way Americans understand freedom is, I will do whatever I want. That is licentiousness. The thin line of difference between freedom and lunacy is intellect. A person who is free because of intellect. A person who is lunatic because of lack of intellect. That makes all the difference. We say, I have right to speech. I can speak whatever I want. But no one talks about duty to make sense. You are given the right to speak only because you have the duty to speak sense. I have the rights to speak. This is a democratic country. I will say anything I want. Now, why is any right given? A right is a tool to fulfill a duty. So all of us talk about rights, but none of us are aware of right going along with duty. Next. Is Yajna number 9 tied to Yajna number 2? Is it only for gurus? Yajna number 9 is Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna. Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna means self-study, gaining wisdom. Yajna number 2 in the list is absolute ideal, means working for self-realization. So Krish is asking if they both are same. I answered in the previous session, they both are same in the sense they are talking about self-realization. Yajna number 2 is talking about self-realization, working for self-realization. Yajna number 9 is talking about the practice that you adopt for attaining realization. What is the principle? The principle is gravitating or elevating yourself to higher, discarding lower. This is spiritual principle. The principle in evolution is this. You are escalating your thoughts. You are elevating your thoughts to subtler, to higher, as a result of which the lower falls. So this escalation can happen in 4 ways. Materially it can happen, physically it can happen, emotionally it can happen, based on thoughts, spiritually it can happen. So Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna is talking about the highest sacrifice. which is study. So what happens with study? You don't teach others. The first thing that should happen with study is you become aware of your selfishness and don't promote it further. We can't get rid of selfishness. Whatever percentage we have, you can't abandon it, but we need not promote it. People ask how to be free from attachment, how to detach. We can't be free from attachment and detach, but you can consciously stop furthering attachment. How do we have attachment today? Because of negligent living in the past. We allowed emotions to go everywhere. And these emotions have got entangled today. You have a dog, we get attached to the dog. We get attached to things that we don't own. One of our class members is having a tough time to throw out a tenant in Canada, here, not in India, in Canada. Of course, the rules are there in place, but both the families are very close to each other, known to each other. So the house owner is trying to get rid of the tenant. So difficult it is because the tenant says, I will give you anything you want. Don't ask me to leave the house. This is the house where from job I started a business. I got an agency. From agency it went to a flourishing business. From business it has got into a small MNC. And this is where my first child was born. This is where my second child was born. The moment I stepped into the house, everything happened for me. I will not leave it. So this fellow is saying, why don't you buy it? No, I don't want to buy it. Because what someone has said, anything you own will not bring you luck. Anything you enjoy from someone else will bring you luck. You're attached to the house that belongs to someone else. And that very person in this country, in our city, is a well-recognized CEO, socially extremely active. If I mention the name tomorrow, he'll put me in the jail. That's why I'm not mentioning the name. Extremely well known in the society. And you may be surprised to know such a person is living in a rented house. He can buy communities together, forget buying a home. Why would he not? He may have 20 houses, letting all of the houses out on rent. But why does he not move into a bigger home, into his own place? Got attached to it. Not attached to the house, attached to this thought. So all of us are attached because our emotions were let loose in the past. From now on, we don't have to get attached. This much we can do. Forget getting detachment. So Yajna 9 and 2, is it only for gurus? All yajnas are for sadhaks and seekers. Guru is beyond yajna. Yajna means placing yourself upon the higher, as a result of which you are freed from the lower. Your question is like asking, what is the elevator for in a 30-floor building? In a building that has 30 floors, what's the purpose of an elevator? To take you up to the 30th floor. Someone who is on the terrace beyond 30th floor, what is the use of an elevator? Theoretically, it can bring him down. For him, the elevator is of no use because he has reached the highest. So yajna means establishing in the higher, as a result of which you are freed from lower. Guru means one who has reached the highest possibility for a human being, discovered the self. So all yajnas are for sadhaks, for seekers. But what you are asking is, what you mean is Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna only for teachers, people who teach? That's probably what you're asking. No, teachers may not be doing Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna. They may be conducting a profession. So what is Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna? Interested in getting rid of your vasanas and evolving. This is Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna, not teaching. Ramana Maharishi never taught. We call him Maharishi, Jagat Guru. He never taught, he never had disciples, he never conducted lectures or classes, never had anything of his own. Kabir, Surdas, what disciples they had, what schools they ran, nothing. But they are gurus because they established in the self. So, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna is for those who are interested in evolving. When you study, and your personality radiates difference, it attracts others. Third chapter Krishna mentioned, a wise person united to the self attracts. Unwise person tries to disturb the mind of others. This is the verse. Unwise person tries to change others. A wise person has no connection with others in that sense. His own evolution radiates, it attracts. It's like fitness. An obese person can lecture to you about fitness. A fit person, walking is enough. You are inspired. He doesn't have to talk about fitness. The way he wears the shorts and walks straight, it radiates, it inspires you. Same way in spirituality. Next. Yajna number 12, which is internal strength into external activity. Does the term external activities refer only to Yajna 6, 7, 8 and 9? Material, physical, emotional, intellectual and spiritual. Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna, or the numbers 6, 7, 8 and 9. So when he means external activities, is it restricted to the 12 yajnas simply? No, 12 yajnas is just an indication. Recit, reaction and response is divided into these 12 categories. Suppose you get a hiccup, yawn. What is making you yawn is that life force in you. So where is yawning covered here? Where is hiccup covered here? There is grumbling sensation in the stomach because acids are secreting. Where is that covered here? You're blinking your eyes. Where is that covered here? You feel like giving a tight slap in the road when a person doesn't indicate. Where is that covered here? So 12 yajnas are only talking about what is common to all of us. Receipt of stimuli, reaction inside us, responses to the world. Out of this 12, any one aspect you are aware of that consciousness, that is enough to lift you. That's the theme. But even one aspect is so hard. As long as mind is free, we can talk anything. The moment something challenges the mind, at that time to think of God is impossible. To be aware of God. So to be aware of consciousness, the moment mind is involved, it's next to impossible. So it's not that there are only 12 activities in life. He picks up 12 activities that fulfills the circle, the cycle. Okay, Krish? So take it in principle, not in, it's not exhaustive. So 12 yajnas. Topic 5, all yajnas culminate in wisdom is the 5th topic. Starts from verse 31. We'll take up 31.
Yajnashishtamrita bhujaha yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokostya yajnasya utonyah kuru sattama
Yajnashishtamrita bhujaha yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokosya yajnasya Kutonya Kuru Sattama. Translation. Eaters of nectar, the remnant of sacrifice, go to eternal Brahman. This world is not for the non-sacrificer. How then the other, O Kuru Sattama? Kuru Sattama is another name for Arjuna. So Krishna calls Arjuna by this name Kurusattama. Kuru is the clan or the dynasty they belong to. Kurusattama means noble among the Kurus, pure among the Kurus, not Guru, Kurus. Noble, the most noble person, pure person amongst the Kurus is how he addresses Arjuna. So, eaters of nectar, remnant of sacrifice, Yajna Sishta Mrita Bhujaha. Yajnasishta. Amrutam Bujaha. Yajnasishta Amrita Bujaha. Bhuja means, like Bhojan you say in Hindi. So Bhoktam means enjoyment. So Yajnasishtamrita Bhujaha. Those who eat nectar, the remnants of sacrifice. Again, it's a poetic phrase. Remnants of sacrifice to mean not result oriented. Sacrifice means evolving to the higher, discarding the lower. This is yajna. This is sacrifice. So any action that you call or label as sacrifice should be free from influence of selfish desire or result orientation. Two conditions. Then you can call it yajna. Yajna means an action that is dedicated to the higher. So naturally, it should be free from selfish desire. If you are doing something for your selfish appeasement, you can't call it higher action. Incidentally, it may be higher, but you are doing it for your desires. Second is desperate on the result. I have to evolve, I have to evolve, I have to evolve. We get so unnerved about this concept of evolution. Evolution becomes another stress. All worldly stress, there are so many channels to deviate you, distract you. Spiritual stress, what will you get you out of it? How will you get yourself out of spiritual stress? I'm not evolving, I have to evolve. I don't have much time. All this is spiritual anxiety. There is nothing as spiritual anxiety, but anxiety happening in spiritual arenas. So result orientation can be a disease in any field. Remnant of sacrifice to mean the person is not interested in the result. The person is interested in the action. Sunil Gavaskar was once asked, you have scored so many centuries. For the talent that you have, at least 50% of times you would have known, I'm going to score a century this match. That type of a talent you had. For which he answered, it's there in the YouTube. He said, I never looked at the scoreboard. This is what he said. He said, I never looked at the scoreboard entire career. I never looked at the scoreboard. That is why he scored so many centuries. You can't see Sunil Gavaskar making horrible mistakes between 90 to 100. Very difficult. Except the only one-day match that he played. There he was desperate to score. Because he was retiring after that. He is not a one-day player. He is a test cricketer. So not interested in the result. Then what is he interested in? Every ball has to be played to the best of your capacity. That's all. Not interested in the result. Hundreds and thousands of poetries, of dohes, Kabir has written. Not interested in name, fame, wealth, remuneration, returns. The only focus is in discharging that action to the best of one's ability. This is what he means by remnant of sacrifice. So what remains as a result of well-performed action, your mind is happy with it. That result is nectar to you, he says. In other words, when your mind compels a particular action, particular result from an action, that becomes poison. Because any result you get is not enough for the mind. It wants more. So your mind craves for a particular result and you perform, launch into an action. Having performed that action and got the result that you are looking for, your mind is not happy. That result is not nectar. Immediately it has turned into the next desire. So nectar means peace, happiness. Poison means agitation, disturbance. So nectar is not to be taken literally. That is the story. Every aspect of philosophy has a story connecting it. The story of churning the milky ocean. Grandmother's story. We listen to the story passively. And if you ask the believers, is there really a milky ocean in which Vishnu is deep inside on a coiled bed and Lakshmi is sitting and massaging? Now you say whatever you want in the class, but don't say there is no milky ocean. Don't say there is no Vishnu inside the ocean. 3% milk or 5% milk or 7% milk. Don't be so sarcastic. So whatever imprint stories we consumed at the age of 3, 6, 7 has become so strong in us that we never found it a necessity to question. All these stories are like puzzles. They have to crack the puzzle and come up with the message. Milky Ocean, the infinite expanse of Milky Ocean that no one knows where it is your own mind. We know everything. We know the world. We know objects. We know people. We know experiences. We know pleasure. We know pain. We know nothing about our own mind. So the Milky Ocean is the mind. The consciousness is seated deep in the mind, not physically, not geographically. Where do you locate God? In your own mind, not in a church or a temple or a mosque. In your own mind. In what type of mind? Not in an agitated mind, not in a disturbed mind. A mind that is serene, a mind that is free from disturbance, a mind that is in perfect equanimity, consciousness reveals. So they said, in the Milky Ocean, milk to mean white, milk to mean purity, in a white mind, in a pure mind, deep inside it, the core of such a mind, consciousness radiates. So Devas and Asuras, the divine and demoniac people, launched on churning the Milky Ocean. This is the story. And if you have to churn a Milky Ocean, if you have to churn a pot, you need a cross ladle. So to churn an ocean, howsoever small the ocean is, how will you churn it? You can't go to Costco and order a cross ladle. So they selected a mountain, Mount Meru. Okay, mountain is there. How did they throw that mountain into the ocean? So the mountain had to be bigger than the ocean. It had to be vaster than the ocean. It can't be pitching in one place. So if you ask these questions, there is no meaning in the story. The moment you ask these questions, your intellect has transcended the story level. Then you should not relate to the story. But the problem is our intellect is grown beyond stories, but we don't know the direction of philosophy. That is where all of us got stuck with stories. So the cross ladle is the Mount Meru. And if you have to churn the mountain, the Milky Ocean has to be churned with the mountain, you need a rope that can go around the mountain and lead itself to both ends. Devas and Asuras can hold and churn. So Vasuki, the multi-headed, the huge long serpent from the Brazilian reserve forest came and offered itself. It volunteered. The longest snake ever. No anaconda can match it. Now how long it is, they are giving measurements also. Because to appease the intellect. And Krish, if you put it on mathematical scale with your IIT intellect, what is the length and depth of mountain, length of rope, and then you say the rope will snap, it's not possible. Don't do all that calculation. Story is for no intellects. Inquiry is for intellectual. So don't inquire into story. Don't accept philosophy. Philosophy should not be accepted. It should be questioned. Stories should be accepted at that age and left alone after that age. You don't explore into the story. Because deliberately it has contradictions. So the Vasuki serpent acted as the rope to churn. And the Devas held Vasuki in one end, and the Asuras held Vasuki, the snake, in the other end. This is the story. And they started churning for days together, churning hard. And what are they churning for? They are churning to get Amrita. Because Vishnu has kept Amrita, nectar, in the deep layers of Milky Ocean. This is the story. And then it's not sitting in a pot. It is all in unmanifest form. So you can't go with scuba diving and find the nectar pot. You have to churn it. So consciousness is not visible in the mind. Through churning, through the process of intellectual inquiry, you find it. This is the significance. The first thing that came from churning the Milky Ocean was not nectar, was poison. This is the story. Google the story. So the story says that they are trying to churn the Milky Ocean to find nectar, but the first thing they found was poison, not nectar. So they don't know what to do with the poison. They can't throw it. They can't abandon it. It will spoil humanity. So the Devas and Asuras, the Asuras said, Devas, you fellows are virtuous. You handle it. And the Devas went to Indra and said, what do we do? Indra is the captain. So he said, we have to ask Lord Shiva. Now Vishnu's ocean you are churning, poison comes, you are making Shiva responsible for it. Again, don't inquire. These are stories. So they go to Shiva and they say, this is what happened. So Lord Shiva says, don't worry, I'll drink the poison. This will not hurt human beings. It will not hurt others. I'll drink the poison. That is why many disciples are asking on internet, the famous gurus, will Shiva save us from COVID? Because they literally believe Shiva drank that poison and saved humanity at some point. Today he will drink all the COVID and save 75, 80 IIT IIMs. Not you, Krish. Just for example, I'm saying. CEOs of organizations are asking stories and gurus are giving an explanation. In Tamil, there is called as Vaitharichal. Vaitharichal means there's so much of heat in the stomach. Grieves the heart to see the questions that are asked and the answers that are given by the gurus. Hardly any guru says this is all story, man. Don't get into stories. Philosophy is different. They are yielding into the stories and keeping people in ignorance. So Shiva drank the poison. Shiva means a person of evolution. So whenever you have challenges, agitation, you go to a spiritual master. He consumes your problems. Okay, what happens to the occupational hazard? Your problems, you talk to a guru, to a master, will it not affect him? Because in a day, 10 people are talking about their problems. Some point of time, will he not get depressed? No, because as soon as he consumed the poison, Shakti, Parvati, his wife, made sure that the poison doesn't go into the stomach and kill Shiva, nor it goes into the head and kill Shiva. So she held his throat. This is the story. That is why the throat became blue. Any poison turns blue in color. That is why Shiva is called as Neela Kanta. Kanta means throat. Neela means blue. Neela Kanta means blue throat. Now what is the symbolism again there? Shakti, Parvati, Uma represents the Vedantic knowledge. In the Upanishadic language, Uma is the daughter of Himalayas, Himalayan king. There is no Himalayan king who gave birth to Uma. Himalayas means the knowledge of Vedanta, the Upanishadic knowledge. So daughter Uma represents the knowledge that came from Himalayas. So if you have this knowledge will prevent any poisonous thought from getting into your intellect or into your mind. So you can relate to certain thoughts that could be agitating, that could be challenging, that could be poisonous, but it will neither hurt your intellect nor your mind. You can be objective to it. This is the significance. So they went and gave the poison to Shiva. Shiva drank the poison and said, you fellows go, continue your churning. And then a horse came, an elephant came. Then the Parijata tree came. Finally, nectar came and they started fighting with the nectar. This is the story. Now, what it signifies is the moment you get into spiritual path, you don't get peace, bliss, satisfaction, knowledge, wisdom. The first thing that you get is confusion, contradiction. This is contradicting with what that fellow says. That is contradicting with what this book says. This book is contradicting with that story. That story is contradicting with this ritual. Intellectually, we are confused. We find contradiction. Mentally, we are more disturbed because we never thought about evolution. No, I am not evolving. I am not evolving. This is another problem. Previously, you never wondered about evolution. You never bothered about not doing any dravya yajna, sapo yajna. Now 4 yajnas are there. I'm not doing any yajna. I'm not doing any yajna, agitation. So when there is agitation, which is poison inside you, what do? That poison will ruin you. You call your wife and sons and daughters and speak to them, they'll send you to a psychiatrist. It will spoil them. So what do? These spiritual challenges that you meet, you need to refer it to your guru. Will it not hurt Guru? Will he not be judgmental about me? Guru means a person who has seen all this and come out of it. He understands this is the path. So he drinks it. And how is that it will not pollute him? Because he has Uma in him. Uma means spiritual knowledge. This is the story. And there is a subtle reference, very indirect reference to in the verse. Eaters of nectar. You don't get nectar straight away. The moment you study and practice, you don't get nectar straight away. It's not a bed of roses. So eaters of nectar, remnants of sacrifice, go to the eternal Brahman. Now how do you go to the eternal Brahman? By getting rid of your vasanas. Yajna means elevating towards higher values, as a result of which lower vasanas, desires, are dropped. So every such effort takes you closer to your own self, to your own being, which is called as Brahman, eternal Brahman. Any attainment is ephemeral. Self-realization is eternal. Birth or death to that state. It's an eternal experience. Pleasure and pain is ephemeral. Joy and sorrow is ephemeral, passing. Knowledge and ignorance is ephemeral, passing. The bliss of self-realization is not born through external contact. Therefore, it is eternal. So you get that eternal bliss of Brahman. This world is not for the non-sacrificer. How then the other? So he says, without this principle of yajna, you can't attain anything in this world. Mahendra Singh Dhoni, Professor Muhammad Yunus, Dr. Abdul Kalam, it could be a Modi, it could be Gandhi, it could be any political, religious, spiritual leaders, sports personalities, anyone you can think of. The success of their life is yajna. Yajna means the right choices they made. So right choice means picking up the higher and discarding the lower. Intellectually, you may accept it. What is wrong with yajna? Of course, all of us should do yajna. The problem is the higher doesn't entice us. There is no pleasure in it. The lower gives instant pleasure. That is why we give a simple example. You offer currency notes to a child and chocolates on the other hand on the child's second birthday. What will the child choose? Chocolates or currency notes? It will pick up the chocolates. So the child cannot make the right choice because it does not have the knowledge of higher. If you force the child to pick up the currency notes, it will be crying rest of the day because it has lost the pleasure content in the chocolate. The child can't understand, I can buy a chocolate factory with the currency notes. It can't understand. But if you are given chocolates and currency notes for your birthday, you should make the right choice because you have knowledge of the higher. The higher is the currency note, the lower is the chocolate. Mind yields to instant pleasures, not towards higher. Knowledge elevates a person to taste the subtler pleasures, as a result of which you go to higher. So he says, this world, no worldly achievement is possible without sacrifice. No, I never knew Yajna, I never studied the Gita, but I'm a successful person. Unconsciously you're practicing. Unconsciously you're practicing, or else it's not possible. That is what Vedanta says. Unconsciously practicing certain values, if you can be so successful in life, consciously with your intellectual application, if you practice, how much more successful you will be. 16th floor, when you go very near the balcony edge, and someone says, come near, 16th floor, the view is beautiful, come near and see. What will you do? No, it's okay. From here, it's okay. I'm getting a very good view from here. I don't want to go any close. You say, no, the railings are very, very strong. It can take any weight. Hold the railings and see. No, I don't want to go anywhere near it. You're conscious of the fact that law of gravity applies. You bring your dog so close, the edge of the parapet wall. What happens to the dog? The dog will not go and stand in the corner. The dog also resists. Very carefully it resists and watches. What is the difference between any one of us and the dog? The dog knows about the fall, but it doesn't know why objects are attracted towards the earth. It doesn't know the law of gravity. It may leap and jump from 3 feet, but not from 30th floor. It will not make that mistake. You may not leap even from 3 feet because you understand your capacity. You are conscious of the laws that operate. Animals are not conscious intellectually. They are not aware, but still they are unconsciously following. So this world is not for the non-sacrificer. You go to a management consultant and say, my business is going down, my business is going down. He gives you strategies. He asks you for information. He thinks about what the business is doing, how to increase, how to capitalize on the markets, how to spread, how to stop a line of production, how to start a new commodity. This is intelligence. And say, I'm suffering in my life. My business is drowning. My profession is not performing well. There's only one answer the spiritual master gives, a real guru. He says, you are suffering in life and unable to perform because of your selfishness. That is why real gurus are never wanted. When you see on YouTube and computers, it is okay. When you see in pictures and portraits, they are okay because they're dead and gone. The photo will not advise you. But a real master will shed light on what affects a person's prosperity. Selfish, self-centered people cannot perform to their own capacity. First is you should have a capacity. Assuming you have a capacity, we regret saying I'm not able to perform. I'm not as prosperous as I could be. Look at others. They are less educated than me, but they are more successful because they are unselfish. That's what he means. This world is not for the non-sacrificer. How then the other? Other means future. Other means the spiritual evolution. You can understand in both ways. Other world doesn't mean there is some world somewhere behind. You perform certain yajna and you go to that world. It gives you a boarding pass. Not in that sense. Other to mean unknown, future. Other to mean evolution. Worldly progress you can't get if you are selfish. If you are selfish, how can you claim yourself to be spiritual? This is the question. This is the question he's asking. This world is not for the non-sacrificer because we are in 4th chapter. 1st chapter, if you remember, Arjuna tells Krishna, if I fight the battle and kill people, I will not attain heaven. I'll go to hell. I will lose my name and fame, nor I will be able to evolve spiritually. This is what Arjuna tells. So here he says, it is by the attitude of yajna, sacrifice. You have an obligation. As a Kshatriya, you should fight for righteousness, not allow your individual personal emotions to interfere. If you do that, you will not only get results in this world, but you will get the other. Other means heaven, peace. Other also could mean spiritual evolution. So 3rd chapter and 4th chapter, both are talking about this one word, yajna, which is what all corporations around the world are talking today. Corporate social responsibility, customer-centered service, they say. What is it? Yajna. A selfish person cannot practice all this. You can't be paid enough to practice unselfishness. I'll pay you a lot, will you smile? How can a selfish fellow smile? Smile and self so stuck. Certain muscles we don't use in the body, they are stuck, they are rigid, they are tight. Same way the muscles here, if you don't smile, they are stuck. So any joke cracked, anything happening, nothing happens here because of selfishness. Laughing is not a mannerism. So by smile, I don't mean you join laughing club and learn how to laugh. Unselfishness means happiness. Happiness always brings calm, composed attitude towards life, which results in a gentle manifestation of smile. So this world is not for non-sacrificer. How then the other? Oh, Kurusattama, 32.
एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः वितथा ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धि तान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः
वितथा ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धि तान् सर्वान्
एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे.
Translation. Thus, manifold sacrifices are spread out before Brahman. Know them all to be born of action. Thus, knowing, you shall be liberated. Beautiful principle. So, Krish has answered your question. Thus, manifold sacrifices are spread before Brahman. Spread before Brahman, again a poetic language. We should constantly remember Bhagavad Gita is a poetic composition. So there are places where the message is direct. Those are less contexts. But most of the places, the message is given in a cryptic way, in poetic language. So we have to go beyond the construction of words. We have to go beyond the language. Thus, manifold sacrifices are spread out before Brahman. Means by following this principle of sacrifice, in whatever action you perform, you can evolve, you can reach Brahman. So it's not that 11 I am practicing, 12 I am not practicing, what will happen to my realization? Any one aspect you practice, it will hook you to that consciousness. 12th chapter, 35 qualities of a bhakta are given. 12th chapter of Gita is called as Bhakti Yoga, Yoga of devotion. 13th chapter is called as Kshetra, Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. The distinction between field and knower of field. Outstanding chapter, 13th chapter. 13th chapter talks about 20 qualities of a jnani. Who is a bhakta? 35 qualities are given in chapter 12. Who is a jnani? The 20 qualities are given in chapter 13. 55 qualities are given about a bhakta or jnani to say at least one, if it inspires you, you will evolve. So it's not that how many from bhakta I should pick, how many from jnani I should pick. It's not that 18 from bhakta, 12 from jnani, try 30. It's not in terms of number. They are giving a wide variety to say what appeals Agam will not appeal Srinivas. So something appeals you, you practice that. That will inspire you to evolve. It's not in the number. That's what he means here. Thus, manifold sacrifices are spread before Brahman. Though the sacrifices are manifold because of actions, the principle is one. The principle in spiritual evolution is Yajna. Whether it is material resources, physical action, emotion, thought, or study, what is the focus in you undertaking these activities? Is your focus upon enriching your desires, selfishness, or impersonal, yajna? That's the difference. So thus manifold sacrifices are spread out before Brahman. Know them all to be born of action. Know them all to be born of action. Again, a very subtle composition. A gentle warning to say, anything that is born out of action is limited. Action produces a result. Action is born from desire. Desire is born from thought. thought is born from vasana. Gahana karmano gatihi was the phrase a few verses back. Karmano api bodhavyam, bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha. The verse said, karmana gatihi, gahano gatihi, which means deep-seated is the source of action. What is the deep-seated source of action? Vasanas. Vasana produces thought in the intellect. Thought produces desire in the mind. Desire produces action in the body. So instead of allowing vasanas to manifest as thought, you are gaining knowledge which changes the way you think in life. Knowledge intercepts at the level of intellect. Knowledge cannot change vasanas. Now, how does spiritual evolution happen then? If you don't gain this knowledge, the thoughts and desires that come from vasanas will rule your action. They'll be selfish and self-centered. Because naturally the mind will pick up what gives pleasure. Mind doesn't know the higher. So by gaining this knowledge, you are intercepting selfishness at the level of thought and transforming it. But that's also a thought. So a selfish thought is replaced by an unselfish thought. An ignorant thought is replaced by a knowledgeable thought. A stupid thought is replaced by wisdom. At the level of intellect, this is what knowledge does. But still understand, no thought, no desire, no action can get you self-realization. Self-realization is not an accomplishment or achievement. That is why it is called as self-realization. Self-realization means realizing your being that has always been the same. Now, our identity revolves around body, mind, and intellect. You are not the body, you are not the mind, you are not the intellect. You are that reality, the consciousness. The subjective experience is self-realization, not knowing from books. We may know from books, we may know from mouths of others, but deep within, what is the identification? We still identify with body, mind, and intellect. So he says, know all yajnas to be born of action. They are still limited. So don't get involved. Don't get attached to spiritual practices. This is the warning here. So don't become so feverish with your spirituality that your spiritual practice becomes an obstacle. Now, none of us belong to that state, so we don't have to bother. Get attached if you're at all. Some guru will pull you out of it. So, know them all to be born of action. Thus, knowing, you shall be liberated. Thus, knowing means, thus knowing Brahman to be beyond vasanas. Your navigation is very clear. Your direction is very clear. Your focus is very clear. You don't want to trade between an ignorant way of living and an intelligent way of living. This is not what a person should trade for as a seeker. One should reach for the highest, Brahman. That's what he means here. Thus knowing, you shall be liberated. Liberated from what? Liberated from vasanas. Liberated from identification with BMI, with body, mind, and intellect. So thus manifold sacrifices are spread out before Brahman. So in terms of knowledge, manifold sacrifices. In terms of bhakti, devotion, innumerable gods and goddesses. In terms of action, karma, which is called as ritual, innumerable rituals, innumerable festivals, innumerable deeds and good karmas to help a person evolve. We may be engaging in a lot of these activities, but hardly any one of us could be evolving because the focus is not clear. Why am I doing whatever I am doing? I am told to study the Gita part. For what? When there is a death in the family, you call a Pandit for Gita. After the life has exited the body, whether you play Gita or Michael Jackson, what does it matter? Anyway, the body will not get up and stand and dance. Two places in which we use Bhagavad Gita. One is court, in a criminal place. You put your hand there and say, whatever I say is truth. Whole life is untrue. In the court, we use it. Second place we use it is in front of a dead body. Please chant Bhagavad Gita. He has to go to heaven. Whole life he has given hell for everyone. How will he go to heaven? How can it be so unwise? This is how it is sold. Academy is the only place where the disciples are not sent for death ceremonies. So many ashrams. The students are sent to chant the shlokas at the head of the demised person. Why that happens is a verse in the Gita says, Prayana Kale, I think in 9th chapter, it says that during the time of departure, if you think of me, you will go to Om, you will go to Brahman, he says. So people have taken literally. So instead of a ventilator machine, you bring a Bhagavad Gita and chant. So before you pull the plug from the oxygen support, chant about 20 verses of Gita, he will go to heaven. And all Chinmayananda, Parsardi, Swami Parsardi, Vivekananda will all be in waiting list because they didn't chant. But you and I who are like Bin Laden, 1 second before we die, we chant Bhagavad Gita, go to heaven. What a shallow way of understanding. Let's have some cause and effect connection. So that's not what he means. What he means is the last minute in life, the thought that will happen in you will depend upon the entire life that you have lived. What is the last thought you will have in your mind on 31st December at 12:59 p.m.? It will not be a thought that you have never thought throughout the year. Whatever has been bothering you throughout the year will bother you on 31st December, will bother you at the 11th, 12th hour. So what you think at that time is a resultant of thoughts you have thought about throughout the year. Suddenly you can't put a new thought into your mind. Mind doesn't work like that. So he says, thus knowing you shall be liberated from evil. Liberated. Now what is knowing? Thus knowing means clearly having that goal, spiritual goal. Whole world is flooded with spiritual practices, but spiritual goal, that awareness is missing. Knowledge makes you aware of that goal. Why? Perform whatever you are asked to perform. That should be very clear. 33.
Shreyan dravyamaya yajna jnana yajna parantapa sarvam karma kilam pata jnane parisamapyate. Shreyan dravyamaya yajna jnana yajna parantapa sarvam karma kilam pata jnane parisamapyate.
Translation. The sacrifice of wisdom is superior to sacrifice of wealth, O Parantapa. All actions without exception, O Partha, culminate in wisdom. So he gives the order of subtlety. The sacrifice of wisdom is the four. Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna. So when we read this verse, we will say, sacrifice of wisdom. Studying is better than sacrifice of wealth. I will study. Don't ask me for any wealth. This is our understanding. So whatever I am giving to the temple, stop it. Why? Because Krishna clearly says studying is better than giving any wealth. It's exactly like saying Rolls Royce is best, Bentley is second, Maybach is third, BMW is fourth, and down the line, Tata Nano is the last. No, I want a Rolls Royce. Just as you can't conclude like that, you can want a Rolls Royce, but how many of us can afford a Rolls Royce? How many of us can maintain a Rolls Royce? Do we belong to that caliber? Do we belong to that capacity? Do we have a need for that? Is the question. Same way, though he says sacrifice of wisdom is superior to sacrifice of wealth, it is not in terms of practice. It is in terms of subtlety of equipments in life. Of the possessions that you carry in your life, material possessions are the grossest. How much wealth you have, you put it on paper and say, this is my wealth. Whoever claimed anything as mine, they had to leave it behind for others. And once the son or daughter got it, he says, now it is mine. I have done the name transfer. How long? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. After that, it will become mine of someone. Nothing, you can put this label mine on nothing. On nothing in the world, you can put this label permanently. So material resources are fast changing. They are ephemeral. With all the wealth that you have, you can't extend your life by 60 more seconds. When the departed time hits, gone. That is the story of the king who was cursed that he will be bitten by a serpent. He did everything to burn up all the snakes in the kingdom. But at 6 p.m., he picked up a fruit and bit the fruit. There was a small insect inside the fruit. It bit him and he died. So the story is not fatalistic. It is to say human efforts are limited in nature. So physical effort or action is that which gets you material resource. So it is subtler than material resources. Shakespeare says, he who steals my purse steals trash. Purse means whatever you have in life. It's a product of your action. I can rob your wealth, but I can't rob your talent. That's not possible. Talent can't be robbed from another person. You can rob Mahendra Singh Dhoni's house and rob the wealth, but you can't rob the talent that he has, temperament that he has. So the physical level action is subtler than material resource because your action is responsible for your prosperity or poverty. Okay, action is there, but emotion is subtler than action. Salman Khan appears on the screen and he shows his muscle and starts fighting. And today it's very difficult to mention Salman Khan's names. Okay, hero. Because wrong name, purposes his name is used. Wrong or right, I don't know. His name is there in the news, always. So the hero comes on the stage, shows his muscle, flexes his muscle, and then fights 10 people. 15 minutes fight, all 10 fellows are on the floor. Then a person like Aishwarya Rai comes and she just gives one look. 100 fellows are on the floor. This hero has to fight. Heroine doesn't have to fight, she just has to look. One look is enough. I don't know how to give that look. Thank God I don't know how to give that look. So one look is enough. 100 fellows are on the floor. So the spell of emotion is subtler than the conquest of action. When you listen to a scientist present facts, Albert Einstein talking about theory of relativity, Vivekananda speaking about Sanatana Dharma, Swami Parthasarathi or Chinmayananda speaking about the Bhagavad Gita, it has a deeper connect. It pulls a person. There are people who have given all their material resources. They found the material resources wanting in front of the wisdom of these sages and saints. The rulers of South India, a dynasty, gave away its entire kingdom at the feet of Shankara. The whole thing. The Shinkeri Mutt is called as Rajarishi Mutt. The kings gave the entire kingdom to the Shankaracharya and said, you are the king, we are your servants. We will rule in your name. That is why they are called as Rajarishis. The other Shankaracharyas don't wear anything except cotton. The Shinkeri Acharyas, which will happen next month, Navratri time, they wear jewelry. They sit in what is called as darbar. Darbar means royal court. People don't understand. They go all the way to Shinkeri, to Mysore to see all that. For what? Just for celebration. This is the significance. The significance is that the entire kingdom was given to them and the Acharya said, as my servant you rule it. We don't want anything. So wealth is surrendered, physical actions are surrendered, emotions are surrendered, intelligence is surrendered when it comes to spiritual conquest. So material possessions that you have is the grossest. Physical body lasts more than material possessions. When the house is on fire, you say, I'll give you all the wealth I have. Please go run in and bring my child out. Will anyone run in? They will say, I'll give you $1 more. Don't bother me. I will not run. You run if you want. No, I'll give you anything you want. Please run in and bring my child. You don't want to burn yourself. You want others to get burned. So body is more precious, subtler than material. Subtler than body is emotion. Subtler than emotion is thought. Subtler than thought is that inquiry on spirituality. Conquest of self. That's what he means. Attainment of self happens through gaining wisdom. Attainment of temporary pleasure happens through wealth. So in the order of superiority, intellectual effort is the subtlest. The grossest is the material effort. This is per se. But what is that I should do? What type of yajna I should engage in? It depends on so many factors. Everyone cannot pick up the book and start reading for hours together. Everyone is not designed to go and sit in a temple and join satsang. Everyone is not designed to do social work, social service. So you have to start practicing according to your individual constitution. You have to practice according to your individual constitution. The best example for that is, all of us could have the same infection. 10 of us could have the same infection. 10 of us go to the doctor. Doctor gives the same medicine, but the proportion is different. To someone he says 3 days. To another person he says 1 week. To a third person he says take it for 10 days. To the first person he says no restrictions in food. To the second person he gives food restrictions. To the third person he gives a lot more restrictions. Disease is the same, medicine is the same, dosage, proportion and restrictions are different because your constitution is different. The same way, universal disease is ignorance of self. Universal medicine is knowledge of self. But the dosage and proportion will determine upon individual constitution. We cannot look at the other person and practice anything in spirituality. So he says, sacrifice of wisdom is superior to sacrifice of wealth. Parantapa. All actions without exception culminate in wisdom. All actions means all yajna actions. All spiritual practices culminate in wisdom. Because the focus in any spiritual practice is discarding ignorance, gaining knowledge. Gaining proximity to the self is the purpose of any spiritual practice. Any questions so far? Who's it? Go ahead, Adam.
Hariom, just a quick question. So you mentioned unconscious yajna. Can you just maybe provide a specific example? Because I don't think I can kind of get that. Thank you.
Unconscious practice of sacrifice. When we say yajna, this principle of yajna, climbing towards higher and discarding the lower, is the secret of any success. Correct? Success is a result of action. What is the secret in making the right choice? You travel towards higher or subtler and discard the lower. This is called as yajna. I never knew this word yajna. I never learned Bhagavad Gita, but I'm very, very successful in my life. Suppose you ask this question. How is that yajna is making me successful? How is yajna making a terrorist successful? How is yajna making a bank robber successful? How is yajna making a medical practitioner successful? Who knows nothing about yajna? For which I said, they are unconsciously practicing. They don't know sacrifice, they don't know higher, lower, they are not consciously using their intellect. But whatever intellect they have, 20% choices will be on yajna lines. If they have 60% intellect, 60% of choices they make will gravitate towards higher, discard the lower. But still, force of situation, surrounding pressures, you will make mistakes. You will make wrong choices. But if you understand the principle of yajna, the difference between mind and intellect, in every aspect you are conscious of it. even if you can't practice it. You understand? Even if when you get distracted towards something that is desire-ridden, you can't eat the right type of food, you succumb to the wrong type of food, you are aware that you are succumbing because of mind. You will not blame others. You will say, I have a weakness. Forget what she makes. I have a weakness. It's not the friends and parties. I have a weakness. That is why I am falling for it. So you will consciously be aware and practice, not be at the mercy of situations. This is unconscious. It's not unconscious practice. It is lack of conscious practice. Sachin Tendulkar and Vinod Kambli, I give the example time and again. Neither of them know what is yajna, what is sacrifice. What's the difference? One person's focus is very clear. I'm here to play cricket. I'll go sightseeing, I'll enjoy parties, I will do anything, but I won't let anything affect my cricket. The other person fell into the trap of enjoying and indulging in everything, forsaking the very cricket that he wanted to play. I am enjoying as many things as it is realistically possible. Once in a while, when there are visitors, I go to Niagara Falls. Rarely, if someone calls for any occasion, very rarely, because every day there is occasion somewhere. I go, I watch and enjoy cricket. I watch movies and enjoy comedies, all that. But the awareness is that what is that I'm here for? I'm not here to get politically entangled in whether Trump should be elected or someone, Trudeau should be re-elected or someone should be re-elected. You understand? So if you are consciously aware of your focus at every point of time, that guides you. So it doesn't prevent you from enjoying life. It regulates your enjoyment in such a way it doesn't contradict. So it paves way for growth, prosperity, and success. Consciously. When the pressure is more, we yield. When the pressure is less, we practice it. But if you don't get pressurized, how much happier life could be? No pressures at all. After that, you don't have to gain happiness. A life free from pressure is a life full of bliss. Now, I am free from all pressures. Now, how to gain bliss? Means you are still pressurized for bliss. No pressure means not bothered about bliss also. That's the state. All pressures I want, but bliss I want now. That is the subtlest pressure you can get in life. Anyone else? So we'll meet in the next class next Wednesday. Hari Om.